Hello everyone. Today, we'll be seeing how fast Aromatisse can beat Pokemon X in a solo run challenge. Let's get straight into the video. Earlier in the week, we played through Pokemon X with Slurpuff on stream, and it definitely did not perform the best among other fairy types I've played, such as Xerneas, Klefki, and Granbull. It also didn't help that that Pokemon had very mediocre stats, but I think Aromatisse might perform better, and if you want to know why, we need to take a look at the stats. We have 101 HP, 72 attack and defense, 99 special attack, 89 special defense, and 29 speed. This is very horrifically slow. I think if it weren't for this speed stat, the rest of our stats would be very good. But what makes it also worse is we're in the medium fast level up group, so we're not even going to be leveling up the quickest. If Aromatisse was in the fast level up group, kind of like I thought it would be, this thing wouldn't actually be that bad because at least we'd be gaining levels for it. And looking at the stats between Aromatisse and on the Slurpuff stream we did earlier in the week, I actually thought that Slurpuff was going to be better because it had the better stat spread, and if you want to know what those stats were, you'll need to go back and check out the stream. But however, I believe Aromatisse has the far better moveset. We start off with 4 moves: Aromatic Mist, Fairy Wind, Heal Pulse, and Sweet Scent. What Aromatic Mist does is it raises the special defense of your ally Pokemon by 1 stage. And obviously, we're not relying on ally Pokemon because, you know, this is a solo run challenge, so that move is just straight up useless. Fairy Wind is just a typical 40 power move. Heal Pulse heals the target, so yeah, no thank you. And Sweet Scent just lowers the opponent's evasion, which is straight up pointless. And then throughout the rest of the levels, we get Sweet Kiss, Odor Sleuth, Echoed Voice at level 13, which is going to be our solution for the first Gym Leader Viola, and then Calm Mind at level 17. I did not expect us to get Calm Mind that early. And we also get Draining Kiss, Aromatherapy, Attract, Moonblast at 31, Charm, Flail, Misty Terrain, Skill Swap, Psychic, Disarming Voice, Reflect, and Psych Up. Yeah, when you compare this thing to Slurpuff's moveset, the best fairy move Slurpuff got by level up was Draining Kiss. It had to wait until Dazzling Gleam after beating Valerie. But look at this thing. This thing can just get Moonblast at 31. So I was thinking, you know what? We have the higher special attack and the far better moveset. I think this will be better than Slurpuff, despite how low our speed stat is. I'm just hoping I'm correct. And if we also take a quick look at the TMs, we get a lot of different coverage. We get access to the Calm Mind TM, obviously, which is not going to matter because we get it by level up. We get Thunderbolt and Thunder, Psychic, Energy Ball, Charge Beam, Gyro Ball, Dream Eater, Flash Cannon, Trick Room, and Dazzling Gleam. It would have been very good to get Trick Room for this thing. However though, the TM for Trick Room is available in Coumarine City. There's a random guy you have to answer his quiz once per day. Randomly, he'll give you one of 4 TMs. I don't know of a way you can manipulate this. I'm not sure if save scumming in front of him would work. I meant to test it this run, but I never did. Because looking back, I think getting Trick Room for some fights would have made the absolute biggest difference, but we're not going to bother worrying about that right now. As soon as I enter Santaloon City, after fighting a bunch of the local trainers, I decide to just go enter the gym right away without getting Echoed Voice. This is a massive mistake. I actually thought Fairy Wind would be enough, but let me show you the fight and let you see why it is not enough. Viola leads off with her Surskit. I go ahead and use Fairy Wind while poisoned because a random trainer in here poisoned me and I didn't have an antidote. So yeah, that's annoying. And while the Surskit is an easy 2-shot, the Vivillon only takes 1/3 of its HP from Fairy Wind at the most. And at this point I realized, yeah, even if I'm poisoned, this probably wouldn't work. But granted, maybe if I wasn't poisoned, I still would have won. But either way, I decided to take the Blackout, go train to level 13, get Echoed Voice, come back, and use this move to completely destroy her entire team. the battle against Professor Sycamore doesn't cause any problems, I go ahead and pick myself up a Charmander just because that's what it defaults over to by default, and it doesn't really matter which of the three I pick. And then inside the Lumio City Pokemon Center on South Boulevard, I'm going to deposit my HM users. The reason I do this is because this lets me skip a few mandatory battles, and the first one is actually on Route 5 with these twins. These twins have Plusle and Minun. You do not want to fight these things. I had to fight them by accident during my Slurpuff stream, and Fairy Wind was 3-shotting both of them, so the fight definitely did take a while for sure. And you can also skip another double battle inside the Reflection Cave. There's a tourist couple with Combee and Vespiquen. Before making my way to Camphrier Town to continue the plot, I actually had to run back to Lumio City and enter this building across the street from the Scutterbug Cafe because I accidentally forgot to get the Quick Claw. I'm sure you can see why that this is going to be the MVP item for this Pokemon. In fact, it's going to be such an MVP, I may not even hold the Lucky Egg for most of this run. I normally like to hold the Lucky Egg for a decent chunk of the game as soon as I get it, but with how bad our speed is, and the fact that we might get put down to death just from simply not outspeeding something or getting flinched, I'm just too scared to unequip this thing. I continue on with the Pokeflute plot and then make my way to Ambra Town. From here, I need to get to the connecting cave, fight the Team Flare Grunts in here, get a blackout because I forgot to buy potions like an idiot. I have this problem with connecting cave. Normally, one of the Team Flare Grunts in here ends up poisoning me or doing too much damage, and I don't think of buying healing items. I need to remember to start doing that. But with all that stuff behind us, we can go ahead and pick up our first rare candy. It's on the beach down here, just outside of Ambra Town. And then I can do some of the training on the way to Solage City because these fishermen, including the one with 3 Tentacool, provide very good experience yields. And as soon as I enter Solage City, I'm pretty much all good to go to fight Grant in my opinion. I have Draining Kiss, I have Calm Mind, I can keep my health high with Draining Kiss. I honestly feel pretty ready to fight him. But Grant is still pretty difficult. While Aromatisse does have a solution for the Tyrunt, it does not have a solution for Amora, and Amora has extremely good special defense. But let's see how the fight goes. Grant leads off with his Amora. I go ahead and use Sweet Kiss, but it fails because of Thunder Wave. And then it just keeps hitting me, I'm paralyzed, and then by the time I finally hit the thing, my health just ends up being too low, and I get very unlucky with paralysis and takedown crits, and by the time I finally get to the Tyrant, I'm at 4 HP, and obviously things don't go too well after that. I am able to win the fight on the second try. The Tyrunt is an absolute joke once I get to it. It's just the main problem is just defeating that Amora. That's pretty much it. Before we can get to Chaleur City to take on the third gym leader, we have to pass through the Reflection Cave. There are a lot of very powerful trainers in here, starting off with the Karina fight just before I leave Geosenge Town. These two Lucario are pretty pathetic. Their only attacking move is Feint. And then inside the cave, there's a bunch of tough trainers in here, such as Battle Girl Hedvig, who uses a Throw and a Hawlucha. I actually avoid this girl with most Pokemon, she is that tough. And in fact, none of the trainers in here actually provide any problems. So I can make my way to Chaleur City, enter the Tower of Mastery, tell the old guy it was definitely me who found that piece of rock. Then I can take on Calum for the very first time. In all of the fights I'll be fighting him in, he's going to lead with Meowstic, which is a pretty good setup target for special attackers, especially if I have Calm Mind by this point, which most Pokemon definitely will not have by this point. And with having access to Draining Kiss, I am almost there to Moonblast. In fact, when I defeat the very last trainer in Karina's gym, I get to level 31 and learn my most powerful move, Moonblast. This is going to completely destroy Karina so badly, I'm not even going to play an intro for her, because look at this, Moonblast Sweep. I can then get myself a free Lucario, get myself a free Lapras, teach a bunch of HM moves and Rock Smash, and then I can make my way to Coumarine City. Before I enter Coumarine City, there's 2 items I like to get for almost every playthrough. I can go inside this house right here and get the TM for Attract. I'm running with a female Aromatisse, just in case I need to use Attract strats on any male trainers, because on average the male fights tend to be harder. Although sometimes I will run a male Pokemon if I need Attract on Diantha, but I never end up using Attract in this run anyway. And I can also cut down this tree to get the leftovers. I don't end up using these either. And also, in this run, I tried to pick up the lucky egg, but I actually couldn't. The reason I couldn't get the lucky egg is because I wasn't at maximum friendship yet. I did end up at maximum friendship during the gym section, so I should have gone back and gotten it. However, I end up forgetting to go back for it for the longest time. But even so, I just keep holding on to the quick claw because I'm just so worried about my speed. But this may have come to bite me later because my level by the end of this definitely suffers from it. But why don't we go take a look at the 4th gym leader, Ramos. Ramos leads off with Jump Pluff. It has very great special defense. I go ahead and use 2 acrobatics, and then when I switch to Draining Kiss, it does get off an acrobatics crit, but I'm able to still live and knock it out with Draining Kiss and get my health back. Next up is the Go-Goat. It does end up hitting me with a bulldoze, lowering my speed, but he just gets stuck in a heal loop, does a lot of damage with Takedown, and then I can finally take out the Go-Goat, and then the Weepin' Bell is a one-shot with Moonblast despite resisting. So yeah, not too bad of a Ramos fight. Although that could have gone bad if things went sour. South of Coumarine City, on the route with the power plant, I can actually get myself a hidden PP up, as well as the TM for Charge Beam. I'm going to teach this move in the place of Echoed Voice, simply because I would like some coverage against the Golbats that the Team Flare Grunts will have coming up. And this is a spot in the run where I would really like to have the Lucky Egg. However though, I have not gone back to get it yet, so I just end up keeping the Quick Claw for now. And I would like to say, with how bad my speed stat is, I can just never be prepared for how some fights are going to go. I actually get a blackout on this one grunt with a single Swalot. Well, at least I tried to black out, and when I couldn't black out, the Pidgey ended up killing the Swalot, so I had to reset thinking I would go back to Ramos, but fortunately, I went back to the grunt who talks about the power plant key. However though, that does still mean I need to do this whole section again, so that wasted a bunch of time. Thankfully, after that one incident, I don't have any other problems with the power plant. I can make my way back to Lumio City, and I can go take on the 5th gym leader, Clement. If I can beat him, I will get access to a very good TM, Thunderbolt. Clement leads off with his Emolga. I do teach Attract to this Pokemon just in case I'm going to need it for either his Hemolga or the Heliolisk. But when I try to use Attract on the Emolga, it Volt switches to Magneton. And yeah, that's not going to work. And even with one Calm Mind, Moonblast is going to have to 2-shot it. But the thing is, even if I 2-shot it, obviously I can't outspeed the Heliolisk, and it's going to knock me out with Thunderbolt. And on electric terrain, Thunderbolt does double the damage. I do end up beating Clement on my 3rd attempt. What I had to do was, instead of planning to use Attract on the Emolga, just go for Calm Mind anticipating the switch, get a lucky Quick Claw, and then I can knock out his team and get myself a badge. Looking back at this, I really should not have deleted Draining Kiss. Draining Kiss would have made this fight a little bit more consistent. The rival fight on Route 14 doesn't provide any problems, which is kind of surprising because this is the first fight where he has Delphox, and Delphox is really bad for special attackers. And then I can make my way to hear a scary ghost story. Ooh. And then inside Laver City, I can go ahead and buy some vitamins at the Pokemon Center. I never once equipped the Amulet Coin, and by the time I sell everything, I have about 90,000 Pokedollars. That's not too bad for no Amulet Coin. And with our low amount of money, today's vitamin of the day is 5 calcium and 3 carbos, and I can spend the rest of my money on super repels. I want the 3 carbos to get my speed EVs up to 100, and similar thing with my special attack. If you look at the bottom right, all of my overlays for Generation 6 and Generation 7 will now have the EVs and stats in the bottom right. I am recording this using a piece of software called PokeLink. It's a very nice piece of software. I did have to do some weird finicky things in order to get it to look good on the overlay, but I think I did a pretty good job. And the held item is underneath the Pokemon in question. And now, we gotta go take on Valerie. Normally the person most fairy types need to defeat to even get a good fairy move, but not for this Pokemon. She leads off with Mawile. I go ahead and set up 2 Calm Minds as it gets off a crunch that does hardly any damage. And then I can 2-shot the Mawile with Moonblast. Well, it did full restore, but the next one did get a better range. Then on the Mr. Mime, I am going to have to 3-shot it with Thunderbolt, and this thing just stalls a lot, especially since it used Light Screen. However though, the Sylveon comes out, and I can just knock it out with a Thunderbolt followed by a Moonblast. And with Valerie defeated, I get the TM for Dazzling Gleam, which I am not gonna really use. I may end up teaching it just for extra power points, but that's about it. There are 2 Team Flare sections at this point in the game. We have to go clear out the Pokeball Factory, and then clear out the Flare Grunts in the Frost Cavern. I'm just gonna skip over both of these today because I don't have any resets or blackouts at any of these 2 locations. And as soon as I get to Anastar City, I can actually go pick up the TM for Hidden Power. For this Pokemon, I'm running Hidden Power Fire. This is to give me an answer for Wickstrom in the Elite Four. And with this TM obtained, I don't teach it yet, but I'm going to go fight Calum right away. His Meowstic is very good to set up on because it only has special moves. I can defeat it and move on to the Delphox. However, I am going to have to 2-shot it with Thunderbolt, and he likes to switch into his Jolteon if I spam Thunderbolt, which is super annoying. And then as soon as the Jolteon's down, the Delphox comes back out. I can hit it with another Thunderbolt and knock it out. Last up is the Absol. The Absol is going to be a 1-shot with Moonblast, but it outspeeds me obviously, gets a critical hit slash, and actually knocks me out. Dude, that is so stupid. I get another 2 resets at this Calum fight, 1 because of a Delphox crit, and 2 because I get burned by the freaking Delphox. Anyway, let's go take on Olympia. The Sigilif is pretty much the world's easiest setup target. It just likes to use Reflect and Light Screen. I can set up all the Calm Minds I want, and then just wait for the screens to go away and completely destroy her entire team. And for most Pokemon that get Calm Mind, this is the moment where I actually get Calm Mind. However, I've had this move since before the 2nd gym, so I really don't have to worry about it. And with Olympia defeated, we have to take on 2 massive Team Flare sections. We gotta clear out Lysander Labs in Lumiose City, and head over to Geosenge Town, and then take out Lysander twice. And then we have to take him on the first time in the lab, so a grand total of 3 separate times, right? Normally, the Lysander fights don't provide any problems at all. However though, the final one can end up being the hardest. Before I go take on this massive section, I finally head back to Coumarine City and pick myself up the Lucky Egg. This might be a little too late, but better late than never, am I right? And normally I would just talk about how most of the grunts were absolutely easy, especially since I can just gain a ton of experience. However, something actually fascinating happened here. For the first time ever to my knowledge in an X and Y playthrough, all 3 Lysander fights were actually very, very difficult. And the reason why? Our slow speed combined with Gyarados flinching me with a super effective Iron Head. That thing hurts so frickin' bad. In fact, I'm not going to cover the Lysander fights in too big a detail, but you just need to know that at all 3 of those fights, I was forced to unequip the Lucky Egg after a few resets just to re-equip the Quick Claw and just keep trying over and over again. And thing is, I have Thunderbolt for the Gyarados as well, but if I keep getting flinched with Iron Head and it just does massive damage, that allows the Pyroar to kill me too because Aromatisse does not have great coverage for a Pyroar. Funnily enough, Slurpuff actually learned Surf. I kinda wish it was Aromatisse that learned Surf, I would actually have used it. But yeah, I started this massive Team Flare section at Lysander Labs with 3 blackouts and 8 resets. And by the time I finally defeat the final Lysander fight in Geosenge Town, I have 7 blackouts and 18 resets. I've had to do so many blackouts at the final Lysander fight that I ended up having to leave the area, go back to Solage City and get the rest TM because I ended up forgetting it and it actually mattered. What really sucked about this run, Aromatisse had the better moveset, in my opinion a better stat spread when you just get some Quick Claw luck, but the thing is, in the end, Lysander really gave this thing a reality check. This thing's speed is just so horrendously bad. I really expected this thing to be faster than Slurpuff. Slurpuff got a real time of 1 hour 51 minutes, and I'm at an hour 36 minutes when I clear up the Team Flare section, so yeah, I don't think this is going to beat Slurpuff, even if it had better luck. It's just the low speed really held this thing back, specifically because of Lysander's Gyarados. And normally, the final gym leader in this game, Wulfric, is an absolute joke as well. However, since Lysander was really bad, I was expecting to at least get a break from Wulfric, but no, he was actually a problem, and for once, I'm actually going to play his intro on purpose. Wulfric leads off with a Abomasnow. I'm going to have Hidden Power Fire for this, so I go ahead and use one Calm Mind first. It hits me with Powder Snow, getting a crit, which fortunately didn't do too much. Then I get hit with an Energy Ball, lowering my special defense, which is great. And then when the Cryogonal comes out, Hidden Power Fire, despite the 2 Calm Minds, only did 2/3 because that thing has extremely good special defense. What my winning strat had to be was just set up 3 Calm Minds and just hope for the best with no crits and freezes and stuff like that. And I do end up beating Wulfric, but man, at a 145 real time, that is just horrible. I really expected more from this Pokemon, I don't know why. But looking back at this, remember how I said earlier in the run I should have attempted to get Trick Room? I think some of these fights, especially the Lysander fights, could have been so much better if on the lead Mienfoo or Mienshao, I just used a Trick Room to outspeed everything. I think it actually would have made the difference this run. If I ever do a re-rank of this Pokemon, or if I ever do another slow Pokemon that gets Trick Room, I need to figure out a consistent way of getting that TM. Because if I can't save scum the guy for it, then there's a complete chance I may have to reset playthroughs if I don't get it, which would be very awful, but it seems like this Pokemon really wouldn't have much of a choice. And you want to know something that sucks? When I was in Victory Road, I actually defeat Calum on the second try, but I end up having to get a reset on the very next trainer because I forget to heal or I had some bad luck. And when I reset, I have to fight Calum again. And it took way more resets to beat Calum a second time than it did to beat him the first time earlier. At this point in the run, I was recording this offline in my Discord server. The raw footage is up already for you YouTube members if you want to go watch it. I was getting visibly and audibly frustrated at this Pokemon. Just like I said, I really expected more. And at the very end, there's a couple of veteran trainers that end up giving resets, but that's just par the core, man. Like, most Pokemon struggle at least with one of them. I often say that the final 3 veterans in Victory Road are harder than the Elite 4, and most of the time, I'm essentially correct at that. But when I did the Slurpuff stream, surprisingly, none of them gave Slurpuff resets. But anyway, with Victory Road behind us, we can heal up at the center, buy some full restores, and we can go take on the final 5 trainers. Let's do this shit. The first member of the Elite Four I take on is Cybold, the Water-type user. He leads off with Claw Witzer. I go ahead and just use one Calm Mind and just one-shot his entire team with Thunderbolt. Yeah, that was pretty easy, although his Gyarados does try to flinch me. Next up is the Dragon-type Elite Four member, Drozna. Drozna's lead, Dragalge, is a massive nerf to fairy types because that thing has very great special attack and it has Sludge Bomb. And in my Slurpuff stream, I actually get a reset or 2 on her, but today, I actually don't. I get poisoned from Sludge Bomb, and despite the poison, I am able to outspeed her final Druddigan and not get knocked out by whatever attack she would have used. Next up is the Steel-type Elite Four member, Wikstrom. This is the perfect opportunity to tell you about my ability. I'm using our hidden ability, Aroma Veil. Aroma Veil prevents moves from affecting my move choices from working, so moves like Torment and Taunt and Encore do not work. And that Klefki loves using Prankster Torment, and it ends up just being a huge pain in the butt. However though, the final Aegislash is going to be a huge pain in the butt, because its shield form is very powerful and defensive, and when it changes to its attack form, it can just completely devastate me with Iron Head, and I end up getting a reset on Wikstrom because of it. After getting another reset to the Aegislash, I actually come back into this fight with Protect. My plan is to actually protect its oncoming move, let it change to its stance form, and then in its stance form with the lower defense, I can knock it out with Hidden Power Fire. However though, I end up not going for Protect turn 1 like an idiot. It lives in red health, it changes to stance form, and I actually survive Iron Head, which was definitely a surprise, and it made me realize I really did not need Protect after all. Next up is the Fire-type Elite Four member, Malva. She leads off with Pyroar. It usually likes to use Noble Roar, but for some reason she never really used it, which hey, I'll take. I set up to +4, used Rest to get my health back. I didn't equip a Chesto Berry, I'm still holding the Quick Claw, and as soon as I wake up, the Pyroar is a one-shot with Thunderbolt, the Talonflame hits me with Flare Blitz, and I one-shot it with Thunderbolt. Then on the Torkoal, obviously I'm going to outspeed a Torkoal. Torkoal has base 20 speed, which is roughly 40% lower than Aromatisse, so I'm still going to outspeed it nicely, especially with my plus speed minus attack nature. And with my health up, the final Pokemon is Chandelure, it hits me with Confuse Ray, I don't hit myself, and Malva goes down. Wow, the Elite Four was easy in some parts, but actually difficult in others. Not often that happens. Last up, we've got to go take on the champion of the Kalos region, Diantha. Diantha leads off with Hawlucha. I do not want to set up Calm Minds on that because it has Poison Jab and Swords Dance. I end up poisoned because of it, but I have Rest, I can just heal it later. I can knock out the Tyrantrum and make my way to the Aurorus. The Aurorus does set up a light screen and has very high special defense, so I use this opportunity to not only use Rest to get my HP back and get rid of the poison, but I can also use it to give my Moonblast and Thunderbolt a much needed buff. And with the buff in place and the light screen gone, I can knock out the Aurorus with Moonblast, and then on the Goodra, I have to knock it out with 2 Moonblasts, and surprisingly, it doesn't end up dying, but I ended up realizing the light screen may have still been up. Whoops. Then next up is the Gourgeist, one shot with Moonblast, and then last up is her Mega Gardevoir. I'm gonna have to 2-shot it with Thunderbolt, but her Gardevoir doesn't really have a solution for fairy types either, so I can knock it out and clock in with a real time of 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 11 seconds, with 30 resets, 7 blackouts at level 77, with a game time after the credits of 7 hours flat. Going into this run, I actually expected this Pokemon to be better than Slurpuff. I know other people in my Discord server were actually saying, hey, I don't think this is going to do as well as Slurpuff, this is going to be worse. And I looked at its special attack HP and its much better level up set, and I'm like, how could this be worse? But yeah, you know how this ended up being worse? Flinches, crits, getting paralyzed, and para-flinches. The low speed really held this thing back, and with this thing needing so much reliance on the Quick Claw, I wasn't able to get as high of a level as I would like, since I couldn't just hold the Lucky Egg for most of these fights. And because of me not being able to hold the Lucky Egg, and I just have to use the Quick Claw too much, I ended up having a lot of XP problems, which ended up being really interesting. I've always thought to myself, is there going to be a Pokemon that's so bad I actually don't want to hold the Lucky Egg? Yeah, this was one of them. It just goes to show that even if you have a great moveset, very good special attack, your low speed can easily flip that around. But I think if I were to plan this run again with Trick Room utilization, I think this actually could be a lot better. I could just Trick Room the Mienshao on Lysander's team and just outspeed his entire team. That would actually be worth considering for the future. But I'll need to figure out how that guy works in Coumarine City. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more. And be sure to follow me on my socials or support the channel through YouTube memberships. YouTube members get access to the patch files for all the Mega Evolution Pokemon we do in Pokemon Crystal, as well as access to members-only unedited videos or re-ranks done in my Discord server. Next week, we're actually going to be going into Pokemon Crystal. We're going to be playing through the game with 2 pseudo-legendaries, Dragonite and Tyranitar. I think these 2 are going to be very good, but I've seen some people play Tyranitar before, and I do think Chuck is going to be a massive problem for it. But you know what? We'll get to it when we get there. And with how many Mega Evolution Pokemon we've done in Crystal so far, as well as other kinds of backports, it really is going to show just how great my skill set has improved in Crystal. A lot of what I've done for the backports I can apply to normal runs. But anyway, I will see you all later, and I'll see you in the next video.